This week I went thrifting in Canterbury, one of the biggest towns in Kent. There's over 10 vintage and charity shops in this episode, so get ready because this episode is packed. I've just hit Canterbury. I do not know what car park I'm currently parked in or how far or close it is away from the high street. I'll figure it out, but let's head into our first charity shop and hope that it bangs. But in the end, I wasn't actually parked that far away from the town, probably 2 minutes if that, but the first thing I did, I got a little bit of food. I got a scone out of this little shop. It was so good. But I headed into our first shop and it was a vintage clothes shop. You know it's about to be a good town when they've got vintage clothes shops in them. I think this one was called Bounce. I'm not really too sure. It's something similar to that. But I've been in it before and last time it wasn't all that. They had some good jeans like I'm looking at now. That's why I went straight to them. But literally like the first time I came in here, the jumpers were pretty average. There weren't really anything too spectacular in here. Majority of the jumpers looked like they came from them vintage bows that Suede do. Sorry, force of habit. But I headed out of there and I headed a little bit further down to our second vintage shop, which was called Funky Monks. Called Monks, that sounded very northern. I meant monks. It looked very interesting. I wasn't really too sure whether to go in, just judging by the stuff in the window. I didn't know if there'd be anything that I'd be remotely interested in. But I thought I'd go in, you never know, you might find something interesting in there. And as well, it's a good little bit of content. But it started off pretty decent. They had some branding stuff and it was pretty decently priced as well. They had this really nice varsity jacket as well, which was only £45, but it weren't that interesting. I was hoping in all these like knitted sweatshirts I was going to find like a Kogi lookalike sweatshirt, but no luck. But unsurprisingly, I headed out of there with nothing. But our next stop off was the first charity shop of the episode, and it was this Age UK charity shop. Headed in and they had a poor selection of shoes, nothing really too interesting. And as well, they had a very poor selection of clothes. There was no real t-shirts, no real sweatshirts. It was literally all shirts and blazers and the occasional blank hoodie. They sold socks in here, which I thought was a bit interesting. Never seen a charity shop sell socks before. Don't know who would want a pair of used socks, but someone might. But I headed into this Charles Trust charity shop next. They had these pair of jeans which had a really cool and unique badge on the back, which I've never seen before, but that was about it for the jeans. They had a serious pair of Velcro strap shoes in here though. There were people in the way of the rest of the section, so I headed over to the toys to where all that was, and I found this Obama llama game, which I thought was quite interesting. And then staying on the theme of US presidents, I found this Trump's small hand soap. Don't know if I'm missing a joke here, I didn't really get it, but I did think it was quite cool, so I did end up getting it. And as well, I think the biggest reason why I got it was because it was only £1.50, and I thought, oh, that would look quite cool on my desk. Looking at it now, it doesn't look so cool, but it is interesting. But luckily when I was done and I went back to the men's section, they had all moved, but I was then very disappointed because the men's section was bare. But apart from that, it was really uneventful. There was nothing in here, but I had high hopes for our next charity shop, which was this Oxfam charity shop, because out of here I got the Gola fleece, which I wore in last Sunday's upload, which if you haven't gone and watched it, go check it out. It was a banger, I thought. But I found this little bin that said £2 t-shirts, but these t-shirts looked like they were like a size extra small. No wonder they were £2. But the first rail that I started to go through was the same rail that I found the Gola fleece on, so I had high hopes, but my hopes were quickly shattered because it was barren. The only interesting thing on here was an Adidas top. But while I was looking in this charity shop, there was a guy in the charity shop and he was talking to the people in there and he was saying, oh, I've tried this on, it didn't fit. He tried something else on, it didn't fit, but he tried this hat on and it fit. And he was going, well, I won't get anything else, but I'll get this hat because you know what they say, if the hat fits. I was like, oh god, I think this is my cue to exit this charity shop, so I did. And I headed into arguably one of my favourite shops in Canterbury, and it is this really good vintage shop. This is probably the best vintage shop in Canterbury, hands down. Every time I go in here, there's at least 4 or 5 things minimum that I say, oh, I wish I could buy that. But normally it is quite pricey. Like this Fila as fleece was quite pricey. I think it was about £45, but I did really like this fleece. I really like this shop as well because they colour coordinate pretty much all the stock, so I really like that. It's a little touch, but it goes a long way. But in here, they always have these really sick like cap art jackets, like that one that was up on the wall. I really like these jackets, but they're like £70-80 sometimes, and I'm not mentally prepared to drop that much on a retro Kappa jacket. But don't get me wrong, I 100% would. But there's some other really cool stuff in here. I really liked this Kappa track jacket. The only thing was it had a football badge on the front of it, which really pulled it down for me. It's a team from the Bundesliga, which I think are actually a pretty decent team, or well, they used to be at least. But I headed out of there empty-handed and headed headed into our next charity shop, which was arguably the best looking charity shop out of all of the ones that we've been to today. Look at the outside of that shop, how bougie. I really liked all of these like tribal kind of mask style things. That's definitely not the right word for them, but I don't really know what else to call them. They also had these little like mirrors that are obviously meant to be in part of like a dollhouse. I was so tempted to get them to put them on my wall somewhere. There's some other really cool stuff in this charity shop that looked like it'd come from all over the world, and I really liked these praying hands. Looked like something that you could have taken out of a church, and as well it reminded me of the emoji. This charity shop actually had 2 floors, so I headed down and I spent a good 10 minutes down here despite literally finding absolutely nothing because I was trying to get a thumbnail. I was waiting for these 2 people to leave and it literally felt like they were never going to leave. I was stood down there for a good 10 minutes at least. I think the people in the charity shop thought I was doing something weird because when I walked out they were all giving me strange looks, but I was literally just trying to get a thumbnail. And the worst part about that story is I flopped at getting the thumbnail. I couldn't even get it. But luckily in our next charity shop that we headed into, which was literally next door, which also had a downstairs men's section, which took me a good 2 or 3 minutes to figure out. I was walking around trying to find the men's section. I could see they had a downstairs, but I didn't know if it was a staff only area, but luckily the woman came up to me and said all the men's stuff is down there. But to be honest, in here there wasn't really too much. Probably the highlight was this like circular rail type thing, which every time you moved a piece of clothing felt like it was about to fall on you. But I think that's where they put all their designer clothes, because there was a lot of Ralph Lauren on there, there was a little bit of Gant, a bit of Tommy Hilfiger, but there was nothing really to shout about on there. So I headed into our next charity shop, which did blow me out the water. Well, at the start it didn't so much, but I did find these Kangol shoes, which I thought were quite cool. I've never seen Kangol shoes. I thought that was interesting. Found a pair of Ultra Boost in this charity shop as well. Culture Force is gassed. But once again, I had to loiter around the charity shop because there was someone in front of the men's section, and this time I went over to the book section and they had a massive good selection of books. They had an art book which was really good. They had a Wagamama's book, a Lee Evans book, a Jamie Redknapp book, Katie Price's book, 1001 Whiskies. The list really does go on. But finally the man had moved from in front of the clothes, so I got a chance to head over there and I found a North Face fleece. I think this fleece was about £6, which is an absolute steal. I've been wearing a fake North Face fleece so much recently, which I got out of one of the bales that I unboxed recently. So when I see this, I was like, this is a no-brainer. I've got to pick this up. But I headed into our next charity shop, which I think had the world's smallest men's clothing section. And literally the only thing that was interesting in this whole section was this Adidas hat. And I think it was about £8 or something stupid like that. I get it's a vintage Adidas hat, but £8, is that just me or is that a bit high? I've just been robbed. I've had to pay £4 to park in here. But successful trip. We've got our Donald Trump hand soap and as well the North Face fleece. So some banging pickups. But I really do hope you have enjoyed this trip to Canterbury, and I hope to see you in another one of my videos.